Joe, another blue blood here that we need to talk about. Oregon did finish the season in not the way that they probably obviously wanted to in the Rose Bowl, but it shouldn't take away from the season that the Oregon Ducks had year one in the Big Ten. I ask you, though, what does Oregon have to do to take that next step? I mean, look, for all intents and purposes, for what it's worth, they got beat by the national championship runner-up twice last year. They're in the playoff this year. They've taken a step every single year. What do they have to do to take that next step going into next season?
Well, that's what's very promising about Dan Lanning and this regime is that it's been a multi-year process. He hasn't been there that long, and he's also really young. It's his first time being a head coach. Knowing the recruiting that he has produced and the guys that he's brought in, and you look at the depth chart of this team, it is loaded with, I see freshmen in the 2 deep at so many position groups and guys that I know that were high 4 stars and 5 stars that could step up and make an impact. I think it's a little too simple just to say like, hey, they've got a lot of seniors on defense that are going to be graduating that they need to replace. Yes, I feel like that is a given. We will determine and find out how things turn around. But on offense, there's a number of players that are juniors that could come back or they could go to the NFL draft. But the biggest position group that I think is going to be so critical for them taking this next step forward and staying and riding off of this progressive momentum that they have is figuring out who that next core of receivers are that you can rely on. Last year with Bo Nix, it was Troy Franklin and it was Tez Johnson. This year, it was Evan Stewart and it was Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson's likely gone. Evan Stewart's a junior. Maybe he comes back. But who is going to step up in this offense that Will Stein knows how to orchestrate and operate to such perfect degree that they're going to maybe improve? I know that Dante Moore, seeing what he did as a true freshman at UCLA, I know he's got the goods. I know that there is a level of play that he can bring to this offense that Dylan Gabriel couldn't because he's physically limited compared to a guy like Dante Moore. So there is a lot more upside for attacking downhill and being aggressive and using more in the run game, all of those things. But we need to find out who are the receivers that are going to step up. Is it DeCorian Moore? Is a guy like Jurion Dickey, who was highly regarded as a recruit? Who are those next guys that can eventually become premier players?
I think DeCorian Moore is going to be special, but I got to go opposite of you. Joe, I've seen 2 quarterbacks be moderately really good under Will Stein in back-to-back years. So what? You got in a close defensive game against Ohio State. You got to be able to win those games too. Joe, quite frankly, you had a team that could not run the football, line up and bust you in the mouth the last 2 times that you played them. Let's call it what it is. I saw Penn State and Ohio State mess you up in the running game. That's not an opinion. It's a fact. And you and I talked about this a lot throughout the season. Now, I look at Elijah Rushing. I look at Aiden Breland. I look at a lot of these guys that they've gotten out of high school that they're developing, bringing up in the system. I get all of that. Now you got to go show me the development piece. Joe, the God's honest truth. Now, I know Jeremiah Smith went off on you and all this kind of stuff. Penn State ran all over you. Joe, you're talking about an offense that can barely bust a grape running the football against SMU at home. Same thing happened with Boise State. Joe, there were times and moments against Boise State, Penn State could barely bust a grape. They ultimately did at the end when Singleton broke off the long run. Well, good on them. But the bottom line remains, for me, the last 2 seasons, what have happened? You got too leaky in the defensive run game. Look, I know that you're recruiting well there. I get it. But if you're asking me, what do I trust more? So what? You're in a dogfight with a really good defense. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do that. Joe, I think that they're building an identity defensively that's taking a little bit longer than maybe they've anticipated. They've recruited at a high level. It's weird to say this because you look at them and statistically they're in the top 15, top 20 when it comes to defensive rankings. But, Joe, you can turn on any game, and we both can look against Penn State, Ohio State. What won them the game? Joe, they're trying to battle back in the game 2 weeks ago, and Ohio State, who cannot run the ball, They're busting long runs all over you. Henderson has a long run for a touchdown, and I'm not saying he's the slowest running back, but it's not like he's the most explosive running back in the country. Like, what are we doing here? Joe, I got to be real with you. I fully figure and feel that they're going to get things figured out offensively. Till Will Stein proves me otherwise, I feel like it's going to happen. I got to see you be better up front in the front seven.
That's fair. That's a fair assertion.
You want to – I told you this last offseason. I'm going to preface it again here tonight. You ready? All 4 teams in last year's playoff, all 4 teams in this year's playoff, what do they all have in common? What? Every single one of them. They stopped the run at an effective rate. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State. They all are ruthless at stopping the running game. You want to take that next step to national championship status, it's what you got to do. It's what all the champions do. Defensively, you can't run the ball on them. They make you one-dimensional.
I agree with you on that, but the one thing that I feel optimistic for that is, you remember like the past 2 signing days, we've done videos on this talking about the defensive tackle recruits that they've brought in. I have a feeling that we're going to see a different version of it.
We very well may. We very well may.
Right. There's no clear answer to that question, and it could go in the swing in the complete opposite direction. They got to replace Derek Harmon and Jordan Burch. Mateo Uiagalelei comes back, who had a phenomenal year as a pass rusher, not as much as a run defender. He's still a great player overall. He's more known as a pass rusher. Who do they have in the interior? And, maybe there are guys that are able to step up that were a part of, those freshman classes that we really, really hyped up. Like Aiden Breland was somebody that we talked about a ton, who I think could be a really, really good player for them. And Elijah Rushing, too, is another player who could end up being really freaking good for them. Those former 4 stars and 5 stars need to step up, and that goes in line with what you're saying.